Hello everyone, today's video is a long-awaited video on my boa constrictor Ajax. Here he is. You can probably hear him doing some wheezing. So first I'm just going to start off with an Ajax introduction. He's a common boa constrictor. I don't know anything about his lineage or anything like that. All I know is he's not a red tail. He's not any sort of fancy morph, because he is all brown throughout here, and red tail boas would have the true red circles, so he is just a common boa constrictor. He is about 6 feet long, fully stretched out, and normally he weighs about 40 pounds. Sometimes, like right after he eats, he weighs a little bit more. He right now eats really big guinea pigs about the size of rabbits once a month. He's actually due to eat tonight, so he's probably wondering why I'm handling him. Our vet's best guess is that he's 14 years old, about 12 to 13 when I got him, and I've had him for about 2 years now. So I've not had Ajax his entire life. I've only had him a small portion of his life, but I always had people on Instagram asking what happened to him and trying to take guesses on what happened to him. And I've made a couple posts about it, but I think this video will be better at clearing it up because you'll actually get to see him and hear me talk about it. I'll also be putting pictures throughout to show what he looked like previously so that you can see what he looked like before I got him versus now. So my roommate actually brought Ajax home for me. My roommate's uncle knew a guy who kept a lot of exotic reptiles, and I guess my roommate went over to see what sort of reptiles he had, and he saw Ajax in this 10-gallon, and my roommate was essentially like, "You're giving me that boa constrictor or else I'm calling the cops." And the guy said that he wanted us to pay him for him, but my roommate was like, "Nah, I'm not paying you for this snake. This snake is on its deathbed." So my roommate texted me when I was at work and said, "Hey, I got you a boa constrictor." And I was like, "I don't want a boa constrictor. At the time, I already had a large boa constrictor, so I didn't need a second one." And he was like, "It's a rescue. He needs your help. Will you take him?" And I said, "Sure, whatever, I'll take him." I haven't seen any pictures yet, so I just assumed that maybe he was skinny or something. And so when I got Ajax, I did not think he was going to make it through the night after seeing all the stuff shed, his weight. When I picked Ajax up, I don't know if anyone has ever held a snake, anyone who's watching, but they've got muscle, like definition. They can hold themselves up. You can feel that they're alive. When I picked up Ajax the first time, he just fell over like a limp noodle. It was like holding a piece of cooked pasta. So I knew he didn't have any energy in him. I knew he didn't have very much muscle definition, and I was like, there's no way. He's not going to make it. You can also tell when a snake is dehydrated because their skin starts hanging. So I knew he was dehydrated, and I put him in a plastic bin full of water, and he just dunked his head under the water and didn't take it up. And I could see he was drinking. You can see when snakes are drinking because their jaw kind of moves like this. So I knew he was drinking and not drowning, and that's when my roommate told me the conditions he had been kept in without heat or water. So he drank, and I'm not exaggerating, probably for about 20 minutes without stopping. And so at that point, I thought he was probably going to drink himself to death, because sometimes dehydrated animals do that. They just drink and drink and drink, and then throw it all up because they can't take it all. So at this point, what I was expecting was that I was going to give him the best life he could for that night, but that I would wake up the next morning and he'd pass away, or maybe the next week. I didn't think that I would have him 2 years later, fat and healthy and super annoying. Ooh. Bubby! So I would like to start with Ajax's living conditions before I got him. We have a towel down because in his cage, he decided to turn it into a Louisiana swamp while he was soaking. So he's really wet. I got the carpet really wet. All that good stuff. So this is Ajax up close and personal. You can see he's pretty ugly. I'll explain that in just a second. First, I'd like to explain how he was kept. So he is a 6-foot boa constrictor. He has been 6 feet since I got him. He hasn't grown in length. He was kept in a 10-gallon terrarium. For anyone who isn't acquainted with what a 10-gallon terrarium looks like, this is what it looks like. This is what a 6-foot boa constrictor looks like next to a 10-gallon terrarium. Not the size for a boa constrictor. If we're going to measure it out, a 10-gallon is about 19 inches by 10 inches. So go ahead and imagine for yourself. He probably won't go in there. But a 6-foot boa constrictor inside a 10-gallon terrarium. That was Ajax's life. Secondly, reptiles need heat to digest their food. So this is a heating pad. It's on the top of one of my arboreal snake's cages to keep it warm up top because that's where the snake spends their time. Most snakes, like Ajax, need belly heat. So when I say belly heat, I literally mean heat that goes on the bottom of their cages to warm their stomachs. Because if their stomachs are not warmed, which is where they can choose to go digest, they can't digest their food properly. So they need the hot side and the cool side to be able to digest and then choose when they don't want to be on their hot spot. So Ajax is kept without heat in a 10-gallon terrarium. And I'm sure you can imagine that if you're in a 10-gallon terrarium this size, there's no room for a water dish. So Ajax did not have a water dish either. So imagine again, you're a 6-foot snake kept in a 10-gallon terrarium with no water and no heat. On this, Ajax was kept on a form of decorative rock. It wasn't exactly this because it wasn't plastic. They were using something closer to rock. But this is what Ajax was kept on. Not really comfortable. So in essence, Ajax had been left in the same clothes that he was wearing since he was 2. He had a lot of layers of stuck shed all over his face, mostly covering his right side over his right eye, over his nose and mouth. So all the shed pieces were stuck on his face. And I really thought he was going to lose his right eye because I couldn't see it anymore. So what me and my then boyfriend, now husband, did is we just sat with him with a wet cloth over his face, peeling layer after layer after layer of stuck shed. He had in total, I think we probably pulled off 8 layers that night and then a couple more layers in the morning because we just couldn't get it all off. He also had some stuck on his back, but that didn't cause as much of an issue. He had some stuck on the tip of his tail, and what I'll show you guys in just a second, he's missing the bottom half of his tail. So if you think about wearing like the same ring that you wore from when you were a baby, it would eventually constrict to the point where your finger fell off. So that's essentially what happened to Ajax's tail. His skin got so tight on his tail that a piece of his tail fell off. So to show you guys the physical deformity of Ajax's face, this is that eye that I told you guys that I thought he was going to lose. This is his face. He doesn't like me poking around at him. This here, he has one nostril open. It's the one black hole. Here's the front of his face. And if you hear that, it's not hissing. He physically can only breathe through one of his nostril holes. So it sounds like he's hissing, but he really just has trouble breathing. When we first got him, he would open his mouth a lot to breathe. He doesn't do that so much anymore, but he used to do it a lot. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but when snakes shed, they shed in one piece from the very tip of their nose, including the inside of their nostrils, to, oh my gosh, sit still, to over their eyeballs. There's a scale on their eyeballs, so they lack an eyelid, so that actually sheds. And they shed all the way down, everything, all the way to the tip of their tail. Ajax doesn't like being grabbed on his tail. So in Ajax's case, if you miss a couple of sheds or you have some pieces that don't make it off, it can cause some severe deformities. The way I would describe it to some of my kids in educational shows is imagine that your mom had left you in the same shoes that you'd been wearing since you were 2. It would cause some real problems. Sorry, Ajax is going behind the monitor cage. I wanted to show what a full shed should look like on a snake. This is if your heating is right, your humidity is right. Snakes need that humidity to shed, so if you're thinking that you just won't do the husbandry correctly, you'll have an ugly snake like Ajax. So starting at the head, this is what I was saying. Those are his eye caps. So those are literally like if they had eyelids, which they don't, those would be it. That's all of his nose, his face, goes down the body. It's still full, still full. We keep it going, keep it going. Around here, you'll hit the, somewhere. Around here, you'll hit the cloaca. That's where snakes use the bathroom, have their reproductive organs, all of the above. So that's the only spot that there should be a hole. Then you keep it going, and it should wrap up at the end. You should be able to put it on like an arm glove. So believe it or not, Ajax is actually pretty skinny right now because he's due for his monthly meal. But when I first got him, I could not fit my hand, or I could fit my hand around him. So my hand could go around his girth. That would make Ajax, his whole body, about as big as his neck right here. So imagine again a 6-foot boa constrictor with a body the thickness of his neck, which I will post a picture of. He had not eaten in, I'm not really sure how long. It's hard to tell with snakes. They can go a really long time without eating, but oh my gosh, she's so fat now. But Ajax had gone a really long time without eating. You could feel his backbone. You could feel his ribs, which I've never been able to feel ribs in a snake, but you could see everything. It was just like a straight line from his head to his tail. So just from this, you can see that his living conditions were grotesque, which would of course cause a lot of physical deformities, which I'm going to go into now. It's a little bit graphic, so if you have trouble hearing about things like this, Ajax did have a lot of physical deformities when I first... He still has physical deformities, but it was significantly worse when I first got him. So another thing his previous owners did was pull all of his teeth. They pulled him out with pliers, so essentially they would have grabbed the snake, kind of like this, yanked his teeth out with pliers. I'm assuming that they were scared of Ajax and they thought that yanking out the teeth would be a proper response to dealing with that fear, but snakes, as long as the tooth is pulled out the correct way, can regenerate their teeth, because in the wild they do bite things that fight and they do lose teeth. So Ajax now has all of his teeth back and we're super happy. They also hit him, I guess, as a means of punishment. So if I can find it on Ajax, he has broken vertebrae on his back. You can see it clearly. Oh, here it is under my leg. Broken vertebrae. So this lump right here is broken vertebrae from being hit. We're not sure what they hit him with, but it had to be something pretty tough to break his back. They also broke his jaw. So, if I can get him to come face me. So they also must have hit him with something hard enough to break his jaw. Come on, Jax. So do you see the sagging? Ah, my hand was on it. Hey, Jax. Come here. The sagging of his jaw on this side. The vet told me that is from it being broken, which means, oh, he's got a hair on his mouth. That's disgusting. Which means he was hit hard enough for it to be broken. He's still able to eat normally. He still opens his mouth and he eats like any other snake that I have does. But he definitely looks a little funny compared to my other snakes. So for those of you wondering where his teeth are, let's see if he'll let me do this. He hates it when I do this. There's little teeth. Little teeth, little teeth. Boas have little teeth. Their bites don't hurt. They're not scary. Bye, Ajax. So furthermore on Ajax's story, when I got home, after we'd gotten all the stuck shed off, so it was the day after when he was still, he was kept without heat, and so I forgot about this part. So when he came back with me, he was super cold after we had soaked him, and I was, ooh, hold on, he's being bad. I was not ready for a snake. I didn't have a cage, I didn't have a heating pad, I didn't have a hut, I didn't have a water dish, so I decided that night if he survived, we would go out the next day to get him stuff, but that night I was like, crap, he needs heat. He's gonna freeze, because it was in the middle of winter in my crappy Memphis apartment. So he slept that night on the couch on my bare stomach to get heat, and he did not move an inch. I slept on my back the whole night. He slept coiled up on my stomach the whole night, and at the time he was small enough because he was skinny enough to do that. Couldn't do that anymore. He's way too fat. The morning after, I'm sorry, I don't want him lost in the reptile room. So the morning after, I'll post some pictures of this too. His gums were extremely swollen, which I was assuming were from his teeth being pulled, but they had white stuff, and he wouldn't. I tried to get him to eat like a small mouse, nothing big, like wasn't that big, because I knew he needed to eat, but he wouldn't eat. So we took him to the vet, and he had mouth rot on his mouth, which is from improper husbandry. So the lack of heat, the lack of humidity, the teeth being pulled had caused infection. So Ajax was on antibiotic shots for a couple months, where my husband actually did it because I didn't want to do it. I knew it was going to help him, but I didn't want to do it. The shot was a needle. It went under his scales and pressed. And that cleared his infection. So as soon as he cleared his mouth rot, he had his first shed with us, which was a full shed. It took off all the excess leftover scales. His mouth looked a little better. He wasn't salivating so much anymore. And pretty much immediately after that first shed, I was like, okay, he has to eat. He's gonna die if he doesn't eat. So he didn't want to eat, but we force-fed a small rat, and he took that. Force feedings, you just pop the jaw open and shove the rat down, essentially. But he had already made it with us for about a month, so I was like, all right, he didn't die the first night, he's staying with us, he's gonna live. And I had already named him Ajax at that point, because I think it's in Greek mythology, it's a warrior. So that's where Ajax got his name. But after that, I tried to feed him a week after, because I didn't want to overdo it. And he ate on his own. He became a ravenous eater. I mean, striking hard at the rat, constricting all the way. He started striking when I would walk by the cage. He would try to bite you when you put your hand in. And I was like, oh my gosh, this snake is now going to be stupid aggressive because he's hungry. I'm sure, has terrible memories of people. I was like, I've got this stupid aggressive snake. But he's not. After he filled up, we were feeding him on a weekly schedule, and then Caleb, my husband, was like, he's fat. You have now made him fat. You've taken this emaciated snake, and you've made him fat. So we put him on a diet, and he's now eating a guinea pig, like I said, once monthly. He's not fat anymore. I'd say he's healthy. Aside from, you can still hear him wheezing, but he has all his teeth back. He's a happy, healthy little snake, and he's actually one of my best snakes attitude-wise, which is so surprising because of all the wrong that's been done to him. But he's the one, if you see me in videos with the boa outside swimming, or any boa at the park, or most of my boa mirror selfies are with Ajax, so he is my kindest snake right now. He lets me pull him out of the cage without a hook, which I can't say for a lot of my snakes. He goes with me to do educational shows for kids to teach about, like, Ajax probably started off this big and someone wanted to take him home, and then he grew into this, and the person didn't know that he would grow into that. So we use him a lot for talking about, is this a pet you want? Is this a commitment that you want for 30 years? I also use him to talk about snakes needing to shed and their need for heat. He's been a great ambassador animal for boa constrictors, and he is definitely one of my favorite animals that I own. I love Ajax dearly, and I don't know what I would do without Ajax. And this is Ajax's new home. He lives in a boa plastics cage along with all my other big snakes. It is 4 foot by 2 feet by a foot tall. I use newspaper because it's just the easiest substrate. You don't have to worry about the animals ingesting it when they're eating. And then he has his hut, And this is over his heating pad. So right under there on the bottom of the cage will be his heating pad. He doesn't really fit into his hut anymore, but he likes to pretend. He has a water dish that's big enough for him to get into, and that's what he was soaking in this morning, and it overflowed and made his cage a mess. And then as you can see, there's not much ventilation on this cage. That is to keep both the heat and the humidity in so that he can digest and shed. And that is Ajax's story. He is literally so annoying now, though. He is so clingy. Whenever I post a video about one of my clingy snakes, it's always Ajax. He won't let go of me. He never minds his own business. Like, this is Ajax all the time. This is what Ajax does if I have him out. He's stupid annoying, but I love him. Hopes that you really liked our video and that you'll like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I think his story is really empowering and needs to be heard by a lot of people. He thinks so too. So here's another close-up on this guy. Wheezing all the way, but like, he wants you to like and subscribe. That's really what he's telling you right now. So like and subscribe to Ajax. We'll see y'all next time.